Hi, everyone. Welcome to Demo Auth0. My name is Shreya, and I'm the developer advocate for Auth0 for Startups. I'm here with Anton Reindl and Max Cunnings from Mindfuel. Hi, guys. How are y'all doing?
Very fine. Thank you. Anton, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you could make it. Could you please start by telling us a little bit about what you do at Mindfuel?
Yeah, of course. And thanks for having us. We're super excited that we can show a little bit what we have done and what we have built. So actually, we started already in 2020 with building Mindfuel. Actually, we were not a startup that were just inventing another pizza app. So it was very clear what we're going to build. It was all about really finding the pain in the market that we have seen, like how do we build AI and data products which really create impact for businesses. And so that was the pain that we felt. And then we were on the, let's say, hunt for what can we actually do to improve the situation. Because I'm not sure if you're aware of, but like nowadays, like at least this year, roughly 150 billion US dollars are invested worldwide into AI and data. And 80% of it is mostly never make it to production, which of course is a pity because they are great people, great technologies, under leveraged. And I think as this is a very, very big problem field we are trying to tackle, so we built a first solution called Delight, which is live since February this year, to really help data and AI leaders to bridge the AI business gap. That's how we call it. So it's a data impact platform to showcase and identify the right things to create impact, full products for organizations thanks to AI and data. So that's a short wrap up what we do. And Anton is here as our director of software engineering. So whenever we see a bug today, I think we know whom to pinpoint, which is great.
I hope not. We just shipped our December release yesterday, and we just like entered our cooldown phase, which is one of my personal highlights because we are now finally pick our own topics and work on something that we really want to kind of improve about the software during the Christmas break. So this is a really cool thing that we started last year. And yeah, I'm obviously an engineer at Mindfuel. I was like early on with Mindfuel, and now part of the engineering team at Mindfuel.
Wow, that's amazing. So many exciting things happening. Congratulations on your release, both the February and December ones. Could you tell us a little bit more about what Delight is, what Mindfuel is, how those two sort of like work together? Feel free to like share your screen if that helps as well.
Yeah, I will share my screen in a second, maybe to elaborate a little bit more about Mindfuel and Delight. So why is there Mindfuel and why is there Delight? As I told you before, we didn't start with the product in mind, right, or the solution in mind, because we just didn't know how we can help in detail. We just had the idea of bringing the data science world. Again, AI was also there, but like in 2020 and also the decade before, it was more data science and product management, because also this is kind of where we are coming from. I've been a product manager for years before for a kitchen device called Thermomix, and lately before then founded Mindfuel, head of data products, where I felt the pain of how do we really bridge the gap between what business needs and also what let's say we can deliver to those needs, right, with AI and data. And I think that is also where many people in Mindfuel are coming from. So many of those people have studied computer science, also with a tendency towards business. And I think bridging this gap, we started as a consultancy, helping bigger clients, mainly in Germany, in the finance and insurance sector, but also product companies, to build data and AI into their services, into their products, into their internal processes. Because data and AI teams mostly are support functions, serving a lot of different stakeholders. That's also part of the complexity in many, many cases. And again, then I think it was summer last year, we decided to finally also bring out a product which scales then out and helps, let's say, the processes, the mindset of product into data and AI, facilitate those processes so they can actually run on their own without the need, let's say, of Mindfuel anymore, right? We were like a kickstart for their data and AI organizations, and now Delight started last year summer. The big public release was February, and that's our early journey where we have first customers now and help them basically again to run and professionalize their data and AI teams. Because it's funny, if you believe it or not, do you know what is our biggest competitor? Can you imagine this at the moment? Question to you, Beck. It's Excel.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that is a really big competitor.
Exactly. And why is that? Because like I would say in the last year, specifically last 2 to 3 years, like every company has invested in technology for AI and data, right? Like foundational platforms, but also maybe how we build models and stuff like this. And I think by now, and I think that's the gap we have seen and identified, there is not really a management workspace for those teams, right? Like they are very technical builders and engineers, and it's really good, right? But let's say their managers of those teams, like AI and data leaders, they manage them really by Excel, right? And every domain, every function in a company by now has, I would say, professionalized their way of working through software, right? Like an example would be Salesforce for sales. What do you manage? People and deals, right? HR software, Workday, you manage people, and the asset again is in that case also people, right? And we have AI and data leaders, which are the forefront of this revolution, and they manage with Excel, right? And we believe in the future that this is not the case, and we must help that we professionalize this and not run, let's say, prioritization and also maybe budgeting processes and stuffing really in old school Excel sheets, which are always broken, but have a tool that basically can help them to do the right things and then again also show the impact that they are creating. And I think that's the least we can do to leverage more of these technologies, because I think we if we come back to the 80% never make it into production, or it could be a failure rate in that case, it's mostly not because the technology is not there, but it's mostly because we have missing management capabilities, we would say, in those organizations. So a lot of things are worked on, but they don't create value. And I think that's a pity, because we waste technology, we waste money, we waste talented people, and companies will lose talented people because they will move to companies where they can create more value, right? So that's where we are, and that's Delight. And Mindful again started as a consultancy, and now we are going the first baby steps into the market with our.
That's fascinating. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But Excel itself for data management, it's a very powerful tool, but also obviously it has a lot of restrictions. Could you tell us a little bit about how specifically Mindful and Delight are sort of like, how are they the next level? How are they able to solve those problems?
Yes, I think then it would be the time to share my screen.
Yeah. And maybe we can also see like how your users are interacting with your app before we dive further into what, identity looks like and those types of things.
Okay, yes. So welcome to Delight. I think the first separation that Delight does from where, let's say, data and AI teams are coming from is that we have a very structured process of how we assess business opportunities. That's kind of the demand, the problem, the challenge the business has. And if we would look into one of those, of course, we have also AI built into Delight ourselves, because if we build, let's say, a tool for AI and data leaders, right, it also must have those functionalities so they can, with their users, but also with the business, see how a modern, let's say, SaaS, AI-driven SaaS can look like, right? So that was a necessity for us. So there's a clear demand clarification process. Then I think where Delight shines is we have what we call a value qualification process of this demand for business and business users. So what's the value potential behind this idea? What are metrics we want to really drive? And also breaking it all the way down to a small business case. So why should we do this? Because we really want to understand before we start working onto something if it's really worth going for it, right? Like, why would we actually do it? Because that's where we can create impact. If we can, before connected to, let's say, metrics, the business needs to improve, we have a clear understanding why we do something. Same goes for strategic qualification, like mapping opportunities onto bigger business goals and also defining a value score to be better able to prioritize what we should work on. Because the regular thing in many AI and data teams is that there's much work that they could work on, but like what's the most valuable thing we should put our scarce resources on, right? Like exactly. Every company, independently how big, there's always too much demand to work on, right? So independently how big the team is, and you have been probably there as well. And now to compare Excel, I think that's when the solution design pops into play, because in Delight you can connect and reuse products you have in your portfolio maintained. And I think why is this important? Because I think the classical use case approach that we see nowadays is always like we build an end-to-end solution and we are not really checking what's already available in our data portfolio. So the reusing of assets can also save massive costs, right? If you're able to reuse what you have in the portfolio, or you just need to make smaller changes to a product, but you can spare 90% of new development cost. This is then where Delight shines, and we call this the business lineage, because I think for the first time in history of AI and data teams, they really can see how they realize the value towards the business, right? Like what do they build downstream in order to fulfill the demand and realize the value on the business side. And why is this so powerful and new in that case? Because now if you have the single source of truth between the business demand for AI and also all the AI solutions and data products you have, like you can answer a lot of questions you get every day. Like a data leader special question they hear once a quarter or once a year is why do we invest again 1 million into our business analytics platform? And for the first time, because we have assessed all those opportunities, the data leader can say, yeah, because there's a value potential of 26 million currently running upstream in our portfolio all the way to the business. So what should we shut down to save the 1 million, or should we rather work basically towards maintaining and realizing this value? So basically it helps data and AI leaders also to save budgets and argue budgets for investments, right? Because this is very intransparent and disconnected today and cluttered across different tools, if at all available. And I think that's where Delight shines a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not a data person, but that's one thing that I do hear quite often is how much money and like resources you can put and how much value you can get from data, but also how expensive it can get to do that. Very cool. Thank you for showing us like the product and how it works. How are your users interacting with this application? I know you've mentioned a lot about like businesses and teams. Is there an opportunity for businesses to sort of like collaborate together within the application?
Yeah, perfect. I think you are spot onto our next big roadmap topic that we are currently working on.
Yeah.
So what you just have seen is kind of the management workspace for the AI and data team, right? They get their opportunities, they have their portfolio that they can manage, they can build different views for meetings, stakeholder meetings, internal meetings, and they can also report, let's say, on their portfolio about the overall value, right? Like that is all what a data leader and their teams need. But like for the business, that's exactly something we have identified and got feedback from our first customers this year. While this is super user-friendly or perceived as user-friendly, for a business, it's still, again, a very technical, let's say, level to work with, right? So that's why Delight Spark is coming out very, very soon. And that's where we, by the way, leverage Auth0 massively, because it's kind of our second product. And now the business can interact with your AI and data team in a really conversational, let's say, way, right? So for example, they can say, I really don't know what we can do in my team. So you can start talking to the data team, but of course with Spark in that case. And you can say, hey, I'm working in the fintech. And then, of course, we are asking questions about like finding out what the opportunity is for the business, right? Because they sometimes don't even know. And they say, yeah, okay, the conversion rate is something we want to increase. So we extract information from the business user in a very seamless way, and then start ideating with the business user for more opportunities. And then they can vote for them, they can send them to Delight. And you know, that's where, let's say, the data and the AI team get, again, new ideas from the business in a decentralized setup. And I think that is a super powerful way of extending Delight and make it more approachable to the business side of the house. So they can then also in the future, again, this is coming as a first version soon, they can ask questions towards, do we actually have maybe a sales data mart to see sales data? Is this actually something we have? Who is the owner? So they can ask all those questions towards the data team without writing every day hundreds of emails, and blocking the data team actually from doing the right things by building products, maintaining products, and not just be hooked by, let's say, basic requests, where they lose time at the end of the day. And that's how we envision the interaction with the business. And that's when we say we bridge the AI business gap. This is a very missing piece that is coming very, very soon to Delight. So that's kind of data team application and then business application.
Got it. I'm very excited to see that roll out. Thank you for demonstrating it. I wanted to ask Anton, I want to ask you from the perspective of engineering, what are some of the challenges that you face when you're building this type of an application for businesses, especially from like the lens of customer and your customers' identities?
For us, it's really hard as a startup. We have only a small team, and we have to sell to large enterprises. And normally, especially in Germany, in the European Union, they have really strong data privacy and data protection laws that they have to adhere to. And yeah, for us as a startup, we have to get into these companies, right? We have to get beyond the compliance gates. And here, like Auth0 is a super partner because it's really flexible in how you configure everything. So from the early days, we have support for multi-factor authentication. We allow single sign-on for a couple of customers. So it's ours. We can set this up instead of like investing weeks of development into such features yourself. So we can really focus on the core product and not worry about authentication.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I also know that you're working in the data space, so that's going to be really important to you. You've leveraged the Datadog integration too on the Auth0 side, right? What was the reasoning for using that? How are you currently using it? What's the value of it for you?
Yeah, monitoring is something that a lot of teams have as an afterthought. For us, it was one of the first things because we had some prior experience with different other tools where we had like issues monitoring the entire solution, and there was already a pre-built integration available. So this was one of the things we saw when we like looked at the market, and Datadog really like the integration was a couple of clicks, and then since then we have all the data from Auth0 streamed into Datadog. And in Datadog, you can set up alerts and monitors with some clicks. So for us, we see immediately if, for instance, a user has trouble signing in. We get an alert in Slack that somebody has like trouble signing in. We can contact the person. We can see who it is. So our customer success team can really like go to these people and help. We have sometimes some issues with 2FA, which is not an Auth0 issue. It's an issue with some app that some companies have in their IT. So we really reach out. Hey, do you need some help? And this is combined with the Datadog features. It's amazing. It's really, really fast and easy to set up.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad that you had a good experience with it. It's definitely something that a lot of the startup program, like the companies that graduate from our program, sort of say in hindsight that that was something that really helped them. So I'm glad you were able to find it in the right time as well. Could you talk a little bit about how you have been able to leverage tools like organizations and single sign-on and like what that identity flow, like the login, sign-up flow looks like on your end?
Yeah, organizations obviously is really important for a multi-tenant application like Delight. And now with Spark, it's even more interesting because in Spark, there are no organizations. You are there as a user, and you can decide yourself where you want to send the opportunities to. So both use cases are perfectly able to set up. It's perfectly to set it up in Auth0. For us, organizations is really important on Delight side. So we have some basic backend features already in Auth0. So when we started, we didn't even have to build our own backups. Now we have invested a little bit into some more tools on top of that. But in general, you can get started right away. So a lot of startups really forget about the internal processes. This is a real, like a lot of overhead that you have to invest into kind of operate your solution, enable your own colleagues to be able to support customers. So all these backend functions that you need to administrate, to reset passwords, to maybe change a person's email or name. So all these backend functions are already there out of the box, which is really, really good. Yeah. And one feature that I really leveraged early on was actions. So with actions, we had it's event driven. So you can listen for some events. You can say, okay, person logged in, and then you can do some actions. And this is a real enabler for customization and like adding some information to a user's account, to the token or whatever. So this is really quite powerful.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can pull up a little bit of actions on my end as well. It's basically just if you aren't familiar with the tool itself, it's little like little pieces of code that you can put into your identity flow at any point, and you can either customize it and write your own code, or you can use our library and come up with pre-log and post-log and all throughout the entire journey, various different actions as well. So we have a lot of templates available. We have some templates available on our community, built by our community, and then you can always reach out to our support team whenever you need to, especially if you're on a paid plan or the free startups plan. So yeah, I'm glad that you had a great experience with actions as well. Is there anything that you feel like moving forward you would want to do differently, or like change or add to your identity flow? Or do you feel like it's a one and done, it is the way it is, and you sort of want to leave it?
I mean, at the moment, we are using the pre-built UI. So we really focus on our own product. We are just using the UI that the universal login that Auth0 provides, which is great. You can customize it. We customized the whole look. Maybe Max, you can pull it out, also show it in the quick screen share. It's nice, but maybe in the future we will have some custom screen that looks a little bit more than our own application even. So this is something where we will look into. And yeah, and one feature that we recently discovered was single sign-on self-service. So right now we have a couple of customers that use single sign-on. So they have some OAuth or SAML providers connected to Auth0. And recently Auth0 also offered a new possibility to enable self-service. So we will have this also at some point implemented in our backend, that admins can really enable SSO by themselves, and it's no work on our side anymore. I think, yeah, that's awesome. It makes everything more efficient.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of efficiency, my next question was going to be like, what does engineering productivity mean to you as, the director of software engineering? You're leading a team of engineers, so that's got to be really important.
Yeah, it is. Of course, with Max has a lot of ideas. So yeah, we have to balance our time. So for us, speed is the one thing that is our key USP compared to other corporations, right? So we can be fast because we have a small team, really short decision hierarchies in the company, and it allows us to just focus on the product features, right? So we don't have to worry and have like a bad sleep at night about security, because we know, okay, somebody is taking care about this, and we don't have to worry about it. And I think that's a great enabler, because we just have focus, and focus is our one core thing at the moment.
Absolutely. And then in terms of, you've mentioned that Auth0 sort of like helped you in your GTM. Could you speak more to that and tell us about what you mean by that, how that happened?
I think that's something Max should answer, because he's doing a lot of sales calls and demos.
Yeah, I was just waiting if you want to start. But no worries. Like, I think before I go into this direction, this is connected to what Anton said. Like, I was just thinking how many problems we have, right? Like, as a founder, young startup, even younger SaaS product, like having one less problem to worry about is just so valuable for us, because we can focus on the core USP of the product, and we really don't need to worry about this part of, or this angle of the application, which is really, really cool. And regarding the go-to-market, I mean, Anton said it already. We are mostly in the space of bigger enterprises, right? At the moment, at least. Why? Because let's say, if you are not managing a team of maybe 10, 12, 15 people, there is really no need of a management application like Delight, right? Because you have your 3 use cases in mind, you have 3 people, they are fully booked for the full year, so there's no need for prioritization, kind of, right? It's like you would also not make a full-blown, I don't know, Salesforce application if you have 1 salesperson, right? It's a similar approach. So in our context, we have quite a buying center to get Delight into the organization. And Anton named already that there are more and more also regulatory and compliance topics popping up, not only in Europe, but I think generally, which is of course a good thing. To some extent, if you want to be fast, sometimes it's not always the best thing. But anyway, like whenever we have those calls and we're talking about what needs to be, let's say, done on our end to be able to actually sell Delight, like it's checkboxes, right? Like how does Auth work for you? Yeah, we work with Auth0, and many enterprises have Okta as a management platform there. So like for them in the calls, it's kind of a checkbox, right? And like maybe we have 25 checkboxes to check, and there's 1 check, and nobody's really asking questions because let's say the brand of Okta and Auth0 is super strong. They know your product, they have integrated your product. So I think that's fairly how we leverage it, not only from a development perspective, but also like really for the go-to-market, because we don't have to explain in detail how we do all of this, because again, it's kind of a chain of trust, right? And that's really helpful for us, because again, like answering information security, compliance catalogs, it's not a fun thing to do, but at least we have parts where they just say, okay, check, of course that makes sense, a good choice, let's move on. That's like from the go-to-market technical perspective or technical process. But then also like for those companies, like single sign-on integration is also like a must-have, right? Like if you just say, yeah, we have user logins, isn't that enough? There would be certainly companies who said by default no, because their policy is if data goes somewhere not in the core system of the company, then at least they need to have control over who signs into those applications, because they need to manage their onboardings, offboardings, whatever. And I think that's where we leverage that massively. And I think that's where it helps. Also very on an operational level. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. I am not from the sales side, but I remember at the startup I used to work at in the sales cycle, so much of that time spent was just trying to gain like trust within customers. So it's a really good point that you made over there, how a lot of times these are just check boxes, but also those check boxes are there because they need to be able to trust you and your product and their data security within your product and everything. On that note, as a founder, as a director of software engineering, do you have any feedback or any advice for other startups who are sort of at a similar stage as you, who are working with maybe a lot of data or with large enterprises as well?
I mean, the joke currently is, of course, don't start with enterprise customers, start with a, let's say, low touch more approach. But of course, that's our learning. And I think every learning might be also different, and every journey might be different. I would say the following, and again, that's where Auth0 helped us again in what we just described. Selling, so if you're a startup selling into bigger enterprises, then it's easy to blame them for the complexity they require in the sales process, right? And sometimes at night, if I have to fill out the 100th InfoSec catalog for a big enterprise, I'm feeling the same. But the truth is, like, we want to bring the software into the enterprises. So we are in charge of dealing with that complexity and making it as easy to buy our product as possible, right? And I think there, having trustful partners like Auth0 helps to be faster and leverage this, you know, because it's really difficult as a small startup to sell into multi-billion-dollar clients, let's say. But if you have strong partners, I think that really helps you to accelerate and my general comment is not build everything from scratch, use what's out there. Again, Anton said it nicely, that enables me to bring more ideas to the team and we can build our core USP, right? Because to be fairly honest, and don't get this in the wrong direction, nobody is buying Delight because of single sign-on, right?
Of course.
But,
Yeah.
They say if you don't have it, we don't buy because of compliance reason, and that's where the beauty of both sides come into play, because we can focus on what's valuable to our users, and our users can use it because there's no blocking part on this very important aspect of building SaaS applications, right? And I think that would be my advice. Like if you go into enterprises, figure a way out how you can make it as easy for them and as fast from your perspective to get the compliance done and have trustful partners, and not just give up and say, yeah, it's so complicated from their side. That's nothing you can change. So that's what you have to do and make it as easy. So yeah, it sounds easier said than done. We also had our learnings, but over time, I think you're getting there. So
Yeah, that's so important. I appreciate that you framed it from the perspective of things that you would have done differently for yourself as well. And then from the product standpoint, Anton, I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure where to start, but like I said before, I think the one thing that is normally really overseen is the effort it takes to operate such a platform and operate all these processes that are user facing, but also internal. So it really makes a difference if you reach out to your customers that have some trouble signing in, and if you email them, hey, do you need help? It really makes a difference, especially in the phase where we are at it right now. With a fairly small user base, it's still possible to be very personal with our customers, and it really makes a difference. And yeah, that's not something I had on my list when we chose the tool, but it really makes a difference, and it's just easier if you can administrate all your users with an easy to use backend.
Yeah, even to extend this very briefly, Anton, because you're mentioning it, but maybe to clarify, like if you are a startup also selling to enterprises like we do, the chances might be high, and that's for us the case. So we have a team called Value Acceleration. So they are helping people to onboard on the platform, right? Like setting it up, configuring stuff. So, and I think to build this on our own, like just for the internal processes, it's really not easy, right? So even there we had tons of shortcuts. Like it's the smaller things, like we discussed organizations, right? And we have now like a couple of internal people who are working in this team. They have one user but multiple organizations, and this is a massive relief for us because we can onboard them to the client easily, can remove access, all in a very easy fashion, right? And like building this for ourselves, Anton, you know it better, but it would have been a lot of effort. Like also, so that's what when Anton says this internal processes we have, it helps us massively. So, and if you're a startup in the same space where also maybe some of your people working with the client in the application, then I think this is super beneficial from what you have built. So at least we can leverage that massively.
Yeah, I love that. That's I sort of see that role as like sort of like a support engineer, but a little bit more involved, a little bit more valuable for the customer as well. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining. We have our drinks that magically appeared out of nowhere. Cheers.
Cheers, thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining. And if you're a startup out there that is interested in building, check out the free plan or join the startups program whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, bye.